I know why you are all here today, but this is not a celebration.
Isaiah Coleman stood at the front of his grandmother's living room. 53 family members stared at him. Cameras were out. Smiles were wide. Everyone wanted a picture with the millionaire, but Isaiah wasn't smiling. In his hands, he held a worn cardboard box. Brown, bent at the corners, held together with old, yellowing tape. His mother, Diane, sat in the front row, tears already forming in her eyes. His brother Derek leaned against the wall, arms crossed, trying his best to look unbothered. His sister Tasha had her phone out, ready to record the moment for her followers. They thought Isaiah was about to make a speech. They thought he was about to announce some big, generous gift. They thought wrong. Isaiah opened the box slowly, and what he pulled out made his Aunt Beverly gasp so loud that you could hear it all the way in the kitchen. One by one, he laid the items on the table, old letters, printed screenshots, a small tape recorder loaded with voicemails, text messages going back 15 years. 20 years of insults, 20 years of mockery, 20 years of you'll never be anything. Every single person in that room had put something in that box, and now they were all about to hear their own words played back to them. But how did Isaiah Coleman, the family joke, the failure, the invisible son, end up standing there as a millionaire holding 20 years of receipts? Let me take you back. And trust me when I tell you, what this family did to this man is going to make your blood boil. But what Isaiah does at the end, that's going to make you stand up and cheer. Before we dive in, make sure you subscribe to this channel and hit that notification bell. Because this story right here, it's one you're going to want to share with everyone you know. Now let's begin. The Coleman family lived in Atlanta, Georgia. To the outside world, they looked like a big, happy black family. Every Sunday after church, they'd gather at Grandma Ruth's house. There was always food. Fried chicken, collard greens, mac and cheese, sweet potato pie. There was always laughter. There was always music. But like a lot of families, the Colemans had a secret. Every family has that one person they blame for everything. For the Colemans, that person was Isaiah. It didn't start out that way, though. When Isaiah was a little boy, he was actually his father's favorite. His father, Big James Coleman, was a truck driver, a big man with a bigger laugh. And little Isaiah, quiet and curious, was the one who followed him around everywhere. While Derek played sports and Tasha played dress-up, Isaiah would sit in the garage watching his daddy fix things. "You got a smart mind, boy," Big James would tell him. "You see things other people don't see. One day that brain of yours gonna take you places." Isaiah believed him. Then, when Isaiah was 10 years old, everything changed. One rainy Tuesday afternoon, Big James took Isaiah with him on a short drive to the hardware store. It was supposed to be a quick trip, just the two of them. On the way back, another driver ran a red light. The crash was bad. Isaiah survived with just a broken arm and a few cuts. His father didn't survive at all. Isaiah was in the back seat when it happened. He remembered the sound of the glass. He remembered calling out for his daddy. He remembered the sirens. He was 10 years old and he had just watched his hero die. You'd think a family would wrap their arms around a grieving child. You'd think they'd hold him close and tell him it wasn't his fault. That's not what the Colemans did. At the funeral, Isaiah heard his Uncle Raymond whisper something to another relative. Isaiah was small, standing near the casket, but he heard it clear as day. "If that boy hadn't begged James to take him to the store, my brother would still be alive," Uncle Raymond said. Isaiah froze. He was 10 years old, and in that moment, a seed was planted. A cruel, poisonous seed. The idea that James Coleman's death was somehow Isaiah's fault spread through the family like a sickness. Nobody said it directly to his face, but it lived in the way they looked at him. The way conversations got quiet when he walked into a room. The way his own mother sometimes couldn't meet his eyes. Isaiah became the reminder of everything they lost. And children, even grieving children, understand more than adults think. Isaiah understood that somehow in this family, he had become the villain of a story he never asked to be in. As the years passed, the blame only got worse. Derek, the oldest, became the golden child. He was loud, athletic, charming. He played football in high school and everyone praised him like he was going to the NFL. When Derek got a B on a test, the family celebrated like he cured cancer. Tasha, the youngest, became the family princess. Pretty, spoiled, always dressed nice. Whatever Tasha wanted, Tasha got. And Isaiah got the leftovers, the hand-me-downs. The empty chair at the far end of the table. He wasn't loud like Derek. He wasn't flashy like Tasha. He was quiet. He read books. He took things apart to see how they worked. He asked questions that made grown folks uncomfortable. To a family that valued noise, Isaiah's silence looked like weakness. "Why you always got your nose in a book?" Derek would tease. Books ain't gonna make you no money. You need to get out here and hustle like a real man. Leave him alone, Derek, their mother Diane would say, but she said it soft, too soft, like she didn't really mean it, and that was the problem with Diane Coleman. She wasn't a cruel woman, not exactly, but she was a weak one. After Big James died, she lost her backbone. All she wanted was for the family to get along. She wanted peace at any price, and the price of that peace was Isaiah. Whenever Uncle Raymond made a cruel joke about Isaiah, Diane stayed quiet. Whenever Aunt Beverly compared Isaiah to his cousins, Diane looked at the floor. Whenever the whole family laughed at Isaiah's expense, Diane laughed a little too, just to fit in. A mother is supposed to be a child's first protector, but Isaiah learned early that if he was going to survive in this family, he'd have to protect himself. Now let me tell you about the worst day, the day that broke something in Isaiah forever. Isaiah was 16 years old. It was Thanksgiving. The whole family had gathered at Grandma Ruth's house. The food was cooking. The football game was on. And as always, the adults were sitting around the living room talking about their children. Cousin Jerome had just gotten accepted into a good college on a scholarship. Everybody was praising him. Now that's what I'm talking about, Uncle Raymond said, slapping Jerome on the back. This boy right here is going places. Lawyer material, you watch. Then Uncle Raymond's eyes drifted across the room. They landed on Isaiah. Isaiah was sitting in the corner, quietly reading a book about computer programming that he'd checked out from the library. Uncle Raymond smirked. He'd had a few drinks, and when Uncle Raymond drank, his cruelty came out to play. Hey, Isaiah, Uncle Raymond called out loud enough for the whole room to hear. What you gonna be, huh? A professional book reader? A few people chuckled. Isaiah looked up but didn't say anything. I'm serious, Uncle Raymond went on. Jerome here got a scholarship. Derek's got his football. Tasha's gonna marry rich. What about you? What exactly you plan on doing with your life, boy? The room got quiet. Everybody was watching now. Isaiah felt his face getting hot. I'm gonna work with computers, he said quietly. I want to build software, maybe start my own company one day. Room burst into laughter, not gentle laughter. Loud, cruel laughter. Start your own company, Derek howled. This dude can't even keep a part-time job at the grocery store and he talking about starting a company. Boy, you dreaming, Aunt Beverly said, shaking her head. You need to come back down to earth. But it was Uncle Raymond who delivered the killing blow. He stood up, raised his glass, and announced to the entire room. I'll tell you what, if Isaiah Coleman ever becomes successful, if this boy ever amounts to anything, pigs will fly, you hear me? Pigs will fly. The whole family roared with laughter. Some of them were literally wiping tears from their eyes, and Isaiah looked around that room, searching for one person. Just one person to defend him. He looked at his mother. Diane Coleman sat there, a small, uncomfortable smile on her face. She didn't laugh, but she didn't defend him either. She just looked down at her plate. That was the moment something inside Isaiah went cold. He closed his book. He stood up. And without saying a single word, he walked out of Grandma Ruth's house. He walked for 2 miles in the cold November air until he got home. And when he got to his room, 16-year-old Isaiah Coleman made himself a promise. One day, he whispered to himself, one day I'm going to make it, not for them, for me. And they're going to remember this day for the rest of their lives. He had no idea how right he would be now. Hold on, because I need you to really feel the weight of this moment. Imagine being 16 years old, sharing your dream with your family and having them laugh in your face. Imagine looking at your own mother for protection and finding none. That kind of pain doesn't just disappear. It sits in your chest. It shapes who you become. Some people, that kind of rejection destroys, but other people, it builds them into something unstoppable. Which one do you think Isaiah became? Isaiah graduated from high school with good grades. Better grades than Derek ever got, actually. But nobody threw him a party. Nobody made a big deal. He wanted to go to college for computer science, but there was no money for it. All the family's money and support had gone to Derek's failed football dreams and Tasha's expensive tastes, so Isaiah did what he always did. He figured it out on his own. He got a job at an electronics store during the day and took night classes at a community college. Slowly, one class at a time, whatever he could afford. It took him years longer than it should have. But Isaiah didn't quit. By the time he was 25, Isaiah had finally landed a decent job at a mid-sized company in Atlanta. He worked in their IT department. It wasn't his dream, but it was steady. It was respectable. It was a start. For the first time in his life, Isaiah felt like maybe, just maybe, he was on his way. He even tried to reconnect with his family. He showed up to a few Sunday dinners. He brought gifts. He tried, but nothing had changed. "Oh, so you fixing computers now," Derek said with a smirk. "That's cute. I got a whole car dealership, but yeah, congratulations on your little computer job. Now let me pause and tell you something about Derek's car dealership. It was struggling. Bad. Derek had borrowed money from half the family to keep it afloat, but Derek talked about it like he was Jeff Bezos. That was Derek. All noise, all show, nothing underneath. Still, in the Coleman family, image was everything. And Derek had the image. So Derek got the respect. Zaya, meanwhile, kept getting the leftovers. Then came the year Isaiah turned 28. The year everything fell apart. The company Isaiah worked for got bought out by a bigger corporation. And when big corporations buy out smaller companies, the first thing they do is cut jobs. Isaiah's whole department was let go. Just like that, at 28 years old, Isaiah Coleman was unemployed. He wasn't worried at first. He had some savings. He had skills. He figured he'd find another job quickly, but the job market was brutal that year. Months went by. Isaiah applied to hundreds of positions. He got a few interviews, but no offers. His savings started running out. His rent came due and he couldn't pay it. He got evicted from his apartment. Now here's where a family is supposed to step in. Here's where blood is supposed to matter. Zaya swallowed his pride and did something he hated doing. He asked for help. He called his brother Derek first. "Derek, man, I'm in a tough spot," Isaiah said over the phone. "I lost my job. I lost my apartment. I just need a place to crash for a little while, or maybe some work at the dealership. Anything. Washing cars, cleaning." "I'll do anything." There was a long pause, then Derek laughed. He actually laughed. "Man, I can't have you around my business making me look bad," Derek said. "Besides, I got my own family to take care of. You a grown man, Isaiah. Figure it out." Click. Zaya stared at the phone. He called his sister Tasha. Tasha didn't even pick up. She sent his call straight to voicemail. He called his Uncle Raymond. "Boy, I told you years ago you needed to be more like your cousins," Uncle Raymond said. "This is what happens when you don't listen. Don't come crying to me now." Click. Finally, with his heart pounding, Isaiah called the one person who was supposed to love him no matter what, his mother. "Mama," Isaiah said, and his voice cracked. "Mama, I don't have anywhere to go. I need help, please." Diane Coleman was quiet on the other end of the line. Isaiah could hear the TV playing in the background. He could hear her breathing. "Zaya, baby," she finally said. "You know I don't have much, and your uncle. He said if I help you, I'd just be enabling you. He said you need to learn to stand on your own 2 feet. She paused. "Maybe he's right, baby. Maybe this is God teaching you a lesson." Isaiah closed his eyes, his own mother, choosing Uncle Raymond's opinion over her son's survival. "Okay, Mama," Isaiah said quietly. "Okay, I understand." He hung up the phone, and that night Isaiah Coleman climbed into the back seat of his old, beat-up Honda Civic, because that car was the only home he had left. The first night sleeping in that car was the coldest night of Isaiah's life. And not just because it was winter. It was the loneliness that made it cold. He had a whole family. Aunts, uncles, cousins, a brother, a sister, a mother. Dozens of people who shared his last name. And not a single one of them would open their door to him. Isaiah pulled his jacket tighter and stared out the foggy car window at the city lights of Atlanta. He thought about giving up. He really did. But then he thought about that Thanksgiving. He thought about his uncle's voice. If Isaiah Coleman ever becomes successful, pigs will fly. Something inside him hardened. "No," Isaiah whispered to himself in the dark. "This is not how my story ends." He pulled out his phone. His data was almost gone and he couldn't afford to refill it. But he had just enough for one more search. His fingers moved across the cracked screen. And there, at 2 o'clock in the morning, freezing in the back seat of a broken-down Honda, Isaiah found something, a free online course. Learn to code, software development for beginners. No cost, just his time and his determination. Zaya stared at that screen. And for the first time in months, that old spark, the one his daddy told him about all those years ago, flickered back to life. "You got a smart mind, boy," he could hear Big James saying. "One day, that brain of yours gonna take you places." Isaiah clicked enroll. He had no home, no job, no family support, no money, nothing but a dying phone and a dream everybody had laughed at. But Isaiah Coleman had just made a decision that would change his entire life. He had no idea, though, that the road ahead was about to get much, much darker before he ever saw the light. Because before Isaiah Coleman would rise, he was going to hit rock bottom in a way he never saw coming. Isaiah Coleman hadn't eaten in 3 days. He sat slumped on a wooden bench in Piedmont Park, his stomach twisting into knots, his phone completely dead in his pocket. The Atlanta sun was going down, painting the sky orange, and Isaiah could barely keep his eyes open. 3 days. No food, just water from the park fountain. His body was weak. His head was spinning. And for the first time since he started sleeping in his car, Isaiah felt something dangerous creeping into his mind. The thought that maybe his family was right. Maybe he really was a failure. Maybe he really would never amount to anything. Isaiah closed his eyes and leaned his head back against the bench, and that's when he heard a voice. "Excuse me, you okay over there?" Isaiah opened his eyes. Standing in front of him was a woman. She looked about his age. She had warm brown skin, kind eyes, and she was holding a brown paper bag from a nearby deli. Isaiah tried to sit up straight, tried to look normal, tried to hide the fact that he was starving and homeless. "I'm fine," Isaiah said, but his voice came out weak and cracked. The woman didn't believe him. Not for 1 second. She looked at him for a long moment. Then, without a word, she sat down on the other end of the bench, opened her paper bag, and pulled out a sandwich. "I always order too much," she said, not looking at him. "My eyes are bigger than my stomach. You'd be doing me a favor if you took this off my hands." She held out the sandwich. Isaiah stared at it. Pride told him to say no. Pride told him to be a man and refuse, but hunger is louder than pride. "Thank you," Isaiah whispered, taking the sandwich with shaking hands. He ate it slowly, trying not to look desperate, even though he wanted to swallow it in 2 bites. The woman watched the sunset while he ate. "I'm Monique," she said after a while. "Monique Davis." "Isaiah," he replied. "Isaiah Coleman." And that, right there, was the moment Isaiah Coleman met the person who would change his life forever. He just didn't know it yet. Monique Davis was different from anyone Isaiah had ever met. She owned a small bookstore over on the east side of Atlanta. A cozy little place called Second Chapter Books. It wasn't fancy, and it wasn't making her rich, but it was hers. She'd built it herself from nothing, after her own share of hard times. That day in the park, Monique didn't ask Isaiah a bunch of questions. She didn't make him feel small. She just talked to him like he was a regular person. And when Isaiah finally admitted, out of pure exhaustion, that he was living in his car and teaching himself to code on a dead phone, Monique didn't laugh. She didn't roll her eyes. She just nodded slowly. "My bookstore's got free Wi-Fi," Monique said. "And a coffee station. Nobody's gonna bother you if you want to come by and study. Stay as long as you need." Isaiah looked at her, stunned. He'd asked his own blood for help and gotten laughed at, hung up on, and ignored. And here was a complete stranger offering him a place to work on his dreams. "Why?" Isaiah asked. "Why would you help me? You don't even know me." Monique smiled a little. "Because somebody helped me once when I had nothing," she said, "and I promised myself I'd do the same one day." She stood up, brushing off her jeans. "Second Chapter Books. Come by tomorrow morning. I'll make sure the coffee's hot." Then she walked away. Isaiah sat on that bench, holding the empty sandwich wrapper, and for the first time in a long time, he didn't feel completely alone. The next morning, Isaiah showed up at Second Chapter Books at 9 o'clock sharp. And the morning after that, every single day, Isaiah sat in the corner of that little bookstore with his charged-up phone, and eventually an old donated laptop that Monique just happened to have lying around. He devoured every free online course he could find: software development, web design, marketing, business fundamentals. He worked odd jobs to survive, unloading trucks at a warehouse at night, delivering food on the weekends, doing anything that paid a few dollars. But every free hour he had, he spent learning. Monique watched him from behind the counter. She saw something in Isaiah that his own family never saw. She saw a man who refused to quit. "You know," Monique said one afternoon, setting a fresh cup of coffee next to his laptop, "most people would have given up by now. Living in a car, no support, teaching yourself all this hard stuff. What keeps you going?" Isaiah looked up from his screen. "My daddy," he said quietly. "Before he died, he told me my mind would take me places. Everybody else in my family laughed at me, but he believed in me." Isaiah paused. "I guess I'm just trying to prove him right." Monique was quiet for a moment. "Sounds like he was the only one who really saw you," she said. "Yeah," Isaiah nodded. "Him and now you." Monique smiled and went back to the counter, but her cheeks were a little warm. Something was growing between them, slow and gentle, like a plant pushing up through cracked concrete. Meanwhile, over in the world of the Coleman family, nothing had changed. While Isaiah was fighting for his life, teaching himself skills in a bookstore, his family didn't call. Not once. Not to check if he was alive. Not to see if he had eaten. Nothing. But that didn't stop them from talking about him. Oh, they talked plenty. One evening, Isaiah's phone buzzed. It was a voicemail. He almost didn't listen to it. but something told him to press play. It was his Aunt Beverly. She hadn't meant to call him, it turned out. She'd but dialed him. And Isaiah got to hear exactly what his family thought of him when they didn't know he was listening. "And I'm telling you, Raymond, that boy is too proud to work a real job." Aunt Beverly's voice crackled through the speaker. "Sleeping in a car, please, he's just doing it for attention. He wants everybody to feel sorry for him. He deserves whatever's happening to him. You reap what you sow." Then Uncle Raymond's voice, some folks just born to fail. Nothing you can do about it." Then laughter, both of them laughing. Isaiah sat in his car, listening to his own family laugh about his suffering. He should have deleted it. Instead, he saved it. He didn't know why at the time, but something inside told him to keep it. "One day," Isaiah whispered, staring at his phone. "One day." And he saved that voicemail in a special folder, the first receipt in what would eventually become a very famous cardboard box. Now I need you to understand something about this next part. Success is never a straight line. Isaiah didn't just study for a few months and become a millionaire. That's not how it works. And that's not what happened. After about a year of learning, Isaiah felt ready to launch his first business. He'd saved up $2,000 from all his odd jobs, every penny he had in this world. He had an idea for an app. A budgeting app to help people who lived paycheck to paycheck. People like him manage their money better. He poured everything into it, every dollar, every ounce of energy, every sleepless night. Isaiah built that app with his own 2 hands, sitting in the corner of second chapter books. And when it was finally done, he launched it. He was so excited. He thought this was it. This was his moment. He waited for the downloads to roll in. He waited and waited. Almost nobody downloaded it. Turns out, Isaiah was so busy learning how to build the app that he never learned how to market it. Nobody knew it existed. And the few people who did find it, there were bigger, better apps already out there doing the same thing. Within 3 months, his budgeting app was dead. And his $2,000, every penny he had, was gone. Isaiah was right back where he started. Broke. Homeless. Sleeping in his car. Except now, he'd also failed that night was the lowest point of Isaiah Coleman's life. He sat in his old Honda in an empty parking lot, staring at the app he'd killed himself to build. The app nobody wanted, and all the voices came flooding back. "Derek, this dude can't even keep a job and he talking about starting a company. Uncle Raymond, if Isaiah ever becomes successful, pigs will fly. Aunt Beverly, some folks just born to fail. His own mother, maybe this is God teaching you a lesson." Isaiah put his head down on the steering wheel. And this strong man, this man who had endured so much, he broke down and cried. "Maybe they're right," he whispered to himself in the dark. "Maybe I really am nothing." He picked up his phone, he opened his email, and he started typing a message to Monique, a goodbye message. He was going to thank her for everything. And then he was going to disappear, leave Atlanta, give up on the whole dream. His thumb hovered over the send button. "Hold on. Stop right here. I need you to feel this moment, because we've all been here in some way, haven't we? That moment when you've tried your absolute hardest, and it still wasn't enough. That moment when the people who doubted you seemed to be right. That moment when giving up feels like the only option left." Isaiah's thumb is hovering over that send button. The whole rest of his life depends on what he does in the next 60 seconds. If Isaiah gives up right now, there's no millionaire. There's no comeback. There's no famous cardboard box. There's nothing. Isaiah's thumb hovered over that send button. But before he could press it, his phone rang. It was Monique. Isaiah almost didn't answer, but something made him pick up. He said, his voice thick and broken. Monique heard it immediately. She always could. "Isaiah, where are you?" she asked. "You didn't come by the store today, and you sound. Talk to me. What's going on?" And that's when Isaiah lost it. Everything came pouring out. The failed app, the wasted money. The homelessness, the family, 20 years of feeling worthless, all of it spilling out over the phone in a rush of pain. "They were right, Monique," Isaiah said, wiping his eyes. "My whole family was right about me. I'm a failure. I tried my best and it wasn't good enough. I'm done. I'm giving up." There was silence on the other end of the line, then Monique spoke, and her voice wasn't soft this time. It was firm, strong, almost angry. "Isaiah Coleman, you listen to me," she said. "You listen to me right now." Isaiah went quiet. "Do you know what the difference is between a failure and a successful person?" Monique asked. "It's not talent, it's not money, it's not who your family is. The only difference is that successful people fail and then they get back up, and failures fail and then they stay down." Isaiah didn't say anything. "Your app didn't fail," Monique continued. "You just learned one way not to do it, that's it. You built something, Isaiah, from nothing, with no money, no home, no support. Do you know how many people could do what you just did? Almost nobody, almost nobody." Zaya felt something stirring in his chest. Your family looked at you and saw a failure, Monique said, her voice softening now. But I look at you and I see the strongest man I've ever met. The question is, which one are you gonna believe? Zaya closed his eyes. He thought about his father. You got a smart mind, boy. He thought about Monique, the stranger who became his family. And he thought about that cruel Thanksgiving and the promise he'd made to himself when he was 16 years old. Slowly, Isaiah deleted the goodbye email. Okay, he said quietly. Okay, I'll try again. He could practically hear Monique smiling through the phone. Good, she said. Now come to the store tomorrow. We're gonna figure this out together. And figure it out, they did. Zaya went back to the drawing board, but this time he was smarter. He realized his mistake. He'd built something big and complicated and tried to compete with huge companies. That was never going to work for a man with no money, so this time he thought small. He thought local. Isaiah walked around his neighborhood in Atlanta and looked at the small, black-owned businesses, the barber shops, the restaurants, the corner stores, the salons, and he noticed something. Almost none of them had good websites. None of them had easy ways for customers to order online or book appointments. They were losing business every single day because they were stuck in the old ways. That was the opening. Isaiah's first client was a soul food restaurant a few blocks from Second Chapter Books. A little place called Mama Jean's Kitchen, run by an older woman who made the best fried catfish in the city. Zaya walked in and made her a promise. Miss Jean, Isaiah said, I can build you a website where people can order your food online. Pick it up, pay for it, all from their phone. You'll sell more food than ever. And I won't charge you a dime unless it works. If it doesn't bring you more business in 1 month, you don't pay me anything. Miss Jean squinted at him. That boy who's always sitting in the bookstore, she asked. Yes, ma'am. You gonna build me one of them fancy websites for free if it don't work? Yes, ma'am, Miss Jean laughed. Boy, you either crazy or you the real deal. All right, let's see what you got. Isaiah built her that website in 1 week. Within 1 month, Mama Jean's Kitchen had doubled its business. Online orders were pouring in. Miss Jean was hiring new staff just to keep up. She paid Isaiah every penny he was owed. And then she did something even better. She told all her friends. Word started to spread. The barber whose shop Miss Jean recommended, the salon owner, the mechanic, the bakery. One by one, small black-owned businesses all over Atlanta started hearing Isaiah to build their websites and their online systems. Zaya named his little company Bridge-Built Solutions. Bridge-built, because of something he'd said to himself all those cold nights in his car. They burned the bridge, so I'll just have to build a new one. Slowly, so slowly, things started to change. Isaiah made enough money to move out of his car and into a tiny one-room apartment. It wasn't much, but it had a real bed, a real bathroom, and a door that locked. To Isaiah, it felt like a palace. He kept working. 16-hour days, 7 days a week. He hired 1 employee, then 2, then 5, and through all of it, Monique was right there beside him. Their friendship had grown into something more. Isaiah had fallen for the woman who fed him on a park bench when he had nothing. And Monique had fallen for the quiet, determined man who never, ever gave up. One evening, sitting in Second Chapter Books after closing, Isaiah took Monique's hand. When I had nothing, Isaiah said, you were the only one who believed I could be something. I don't know where I'd be without you, Monique. I don't ever want to find out. Monique smiled, tears in her eyes. Then don't go anywhere, she said, and she leaned in and kissed him. For the first time in his entire life, Isaiah Coleman felt truly, completely loved now while all of this was happening. The Coleman family had no idea. They didn't know about the bookstore. They didn't know about Monique. They didn't know about Bridge-Built Solutions or Mama Jean's Kitchen. As far as the Coleman family knew, Isaiah was still the same old failure. Still sleeping in a car somewhere, still going nowhere. They'd written him off completely. Derek's dealership, meanwhile, was sinking deeper into debt. Tasha had married a man who turned out to be broke and was already talking about divorce. Uncle Raymond's construction business had lost 2 big contracts. Cousin Jerome, the golden child lawyer, was quietly being investigated for something shady at his firm. The mighty Colemans were starting to crack, but they had no idea that the son they threw away was about to become the most powerful person in the entire family. Because one ordinary Tuesday morning, Isaiah's phone rang. It was a number he didn't recognize. Zaya answered. Is this Mr. Isaiah Coleman of Bridge-Built Solutions? A crisp, professional voice asked. This is he, Isaiah replied. Mr. Coleman, my name is Robert Sterling. I'm the Chief Operations Officer of Sterling Retail Group. We have over 200 stores across the Southeast. We've seen the work you've been doing for local businesses, and we've been very impressed. Zaya sat up straight. His heart started pounding. We're looking to completely overhaul our online ordering and inventory system, Mr. Sterling continued. We'd like to offer your company the contract. Isaiah gripped the phone. Mr. Coleman, Sterling said, I need to know if you can handle a project of this size, and before you answer, you might want to sit down, because the number we're prepared to offer you has more zeros in it than you're probably expecting. Isaiah's hands were shaking, the failure, the invisible son. The boy, they said, would never amount to anything, was about to get the phone call that would make him a millionaire. The number Robert Sterling said over the phone made Isaiah Coleman's whole body go numb. It was $4 million. $4 million for one contract. Isaiah, sitting in his tiny one-room apartment, had to put the phone down on his chest for a second just to breathe. He looked around at his cheap furniture, his second-hand couch, the water stain on the ceiling, and he almost laughed at how crazy life was. Just 2 years ago, this man was starving on a park bench. Now, a 200-store company was offering him $4 million. Isaiah picked the phone back up. Mr. Sterling, he said, keeping his voice as steady as he could, Bridge-Built Solutions would be honored to take on this project. We won't let you down. Excellent, Sterling said. I look forward to working with you, Mr. Coleman. I have a good feeling about you. Isaiah hung up the phone. He sat there in silence for a moment. Then he actually ran. The 12 blocks to second chapter books, burst through the door, grabbed Monique, and lifted her right off her feet. We got it, Isaiah shouted. Monique, we got it, $4 million, we did it. Monique screamed. The customers in the bookstore started clapping, even though they had no idea what was happening. And Isaiah Coleman, for the first time in his life, felt the ground shift beneath his feet. Everything was about to change. That Sterling retail contract was just the beginning. Bridge-Built Solutions delivered on that project so well that Sterling Retail told everyone they knew. And in the business world, one big win leads to another. Suddenly, Bridge-Built was getting calls from all over. Bigger companies, bigger contracts, bigger money. Isaiah, who used to unload trucks at night just to eat, was now signing deals worth millions. He was smart with it, too. He didn't blow the money on chains and cars like his brother Derek would have. Instead, Isaiah reinvested. He hired more people, good people, talented people who'd been overlooked, just like he had been. He grew his company the right way. Within 2 years, Bridge-Built Solutions had over 300 employees. Within 4 years, the company was valued at over $40 million. And Isaiah Coleman, the family failure, the invisible son, the boy they swore would never amount to anything, had become one of the most successful tech entrepreneurs in the entire city of Atlanta. But here's the thing about Isaiah. Money didn't change who he was. He remembered what it felt like to be hungry. He remembered what it felt like to be alone with a dream and nobody to believe in it. So Isaiah started giving back. He built a computer lab in a struggling school on the south side of Atlanta. He created a scholarship fund. He personally mentored young people who reminded him of himself, kids with big brains and empty pockets. And of course, he married Monique. It was a beautiful wedding. Small, but full of love. All of Isaiah's employees came. Miss Jean from Mama Jean's kitchen catered the whole thing herself and cried through the entire ceremony. Pastor Jenkins, an old preacher who'd known Isaiah since he was a boy and had always been kind to him, performed the service. It was everything Isaiah could have dreamed of. But you might notice something missing from that wedding. His family. Not a single Coleman was there. Because Isaiah didn't invite them. And they didn't even know he was getting married. Because as far as the Coleman family knew, Isaiah was still nothing. That was about to change. It happened on a Thursday evening. Isaiah's company had just been named one of the fastest-growing businesses in Georgia, and a local news station wanted to do a feature story on him. The story aired during the 6 o'clock news. There he was, Isaiah Coleman, in a sharp suit, standing in front of the gleaming Bridge-Built Solutions headquarters. The reporter called him a self-made success story and an inspiration to the community. They showed his company, his charity work, his beautiful home. The story spread like wildfire. And that's when the Coleman family found out. Now, let me paint the picture for you. Over at Uncle Raymond's house, the family was watching the news like they did every evening. Aunt Beverly was there. So was Diane, Isaiah's mother. When Isaiah's face appeared on that screen, the whole room went dead silent. "Wait," Aunt Beverly said slowly. Is that Isaiah?" Uncle Raymond leaned forward, squinting at the TV. That can't be the same boy." But it was. They watched, mouths hanging open, as the son they threw away was called a millionaire on national television. Diane Coleman put her hand over her mouth. Tears filled her eyes. "My baby," she whispered. "That's my baby." And in that moment, something clicked inside every single person in that room. You could almost hear the gears turning. Isaiah wasn't a failure anymore. Isaiah was rich. And suddenly, after years of silence, the Coleman family remembered they had a son, a brother, a nephew, a cousin. The phone calls started that very night. Isaiah was sitting at home with Monique, eating dinner, when his phone buzzed. It was Derek. Isaiah stared at the screen. His brother hadn't called him in years, not when he was homeless, not when he was starving, not when he begged for help and got laughed at. But now Derek was calling. Isaiah didn't answer. The phone buzzed again, and again, then a text came through. "Yo, little bro, just saw you on the news. I always knew you had it in you. We should link up. I got some business ideas we could work on together. Call me back." Isaiah read the text and just shook his head. Monique looked at him. "Who is it?" "Derek," Isaiah said quietly. "My brother, the one who laughed at me and hung up the phone when I was homeless." Monique's jaw tightened. She knew all the stories. Over the next week, it was a flood. Tasha, his sister who'd sent his calls to voicemail, texted him a long message about how much she missed her big brother. And, oh, by the way, could he help pay for her kids' private school tuition? Uncle Raymond called, suddenly full of warmth, saying he had always believed in Isaiah, and could Isaiah maybe invest a little something in his struggling construction business? Aunt Beverly called, the same Aunt Beverly whose cruel voicemail Isaiah had saved, and left a message about how family is everything, and how she'd been praying for him all these years. Cousin Jerome, the golden child lawyer who was now under investigation, reached out about needing a loan to cover some unexpected legal expenses. And they all wanted something. An investment, a job, a loan, a handout. Every single one of them. But it was the last call that hit Isaiah the hardest. It was his mother. Diane Coleman called on a quiet Sunday afternoon. When Isaiah saw her name on the screen, his heart clenched. This was the woman who gave birth to him, the woman who was supposed to protect him, the woman who chose Uncle Raymond's opinion over her own son's survival. Isaiah stared at the phone for a long time. Then he answered. "Hello, Mama," he said. "Isaiah," Diane's voice was thick with tears. "Oh, my baby, my son, I saw you on the news. I'm so proud of you, so proud." Isaiah closed his eyes. "Baby, I know things haven't been perfect between us," Diane went on. "But you're my son, and family should never stay apart. Not for this long. Life is too short. We need to come back together, as a family." Isaiah was quiet. Part of him, the little 10-year-old boy who lost his daddy and just wanted his mama to hold him, part of him wanted to believe her. But the man he'd become knew better. "Mama," Isaiah said slowly, "where was family when I was sleeping in my car? Where was family when I called you, crying with nowhere to go, and you told me it was God teaching me a lesson?" Diane went silent. "I'm not trying to hurt you, Mama," Isaiah said, and his voice was gentle. "I'm just asking a question." "Isaiah, Diane's voice broke. "I made mistakes, I know I did, but we can fix this. Come to the family reunion next month, please, everybody wants to see you. Let's start over." Isaiah looked over at Monique. who was watching him with concern. And then Isaiah made a decision. "Okay, Mama," he said. "I'll come to the reunion." Diane started crying with joy. "Oh, thank you, baby, thank you." "But Mama," Isaiah added, "I'm going to bring something with me, something I've been holding on to for a very long time." "Anything, baby," Diane said. "Bring whatever you want." Isaiah looked at the closet, where a certain worn cardboard box had been sitting for years. "Oh, I will," he said softly. "I definitely will." Isaiah Coleman is about to walk into a room full of the people who spent 20 years tearing him down, the people who laughed at his dreams, the people who left him to starve, and now they want to smile in his face and pretend it never happened. He's got that cardboard box, 20 years of receipts, and the family has no idea what's coming. The Coleman family reunion was held at Grandma Ruth's house. The same house where, 22 years earlier, a 16-year-old Isaiah had been laughed out of the room for daring to share his dream. Life has a funny way of coming full circle. Isaiah pulled up in a clean, understated black car. Nothing flashy. He didn't need flashy. Monique sat beside him, holding his hand. "You sure you're ready for this?" Monique asked. Isaiah looked at the house. He took a deep breath. "Been ready for 20 years," he said. He grabbed the cardboard box from the back seat, and together he and Monique walked to the door. The moment Isaiah stepped inside, the whole room lit up. "Isaiah," the family shouted, rushing toward him like he was a returning war hero. It was a total transformation. The same people who couldn't be bothered to answer his calls were now hugging him, kissing his cheeks, grabbing his hands. Derek threw an arm around his shoulder. "There he is, my little brother, the genius. I always knew you'd make it, man." "Always," Tasha snapped a selfie with him before he could even react. "My brother the millionaire, y'all, isn't he amazing?" Uncle Raymond shook his hand vigorously. "Isaiah, look at you, son, look at you. I always said you were special. Didn't I always say that?" Aunt Beverly wiped fake tears. "God is good. Look how he blessed this boy. I prayed for this day." Isaiah smiled politely. He hugged them back. He said thank you. He played along. Monique stood beside him, watching it all with a carefully neutral face. But underneath, she was disgusted. She knew every one of these people. She knew what they'd done. And through it all, Isaiah held onto that cardboard box. Nobody paid it any attention. They probably thought it was a gift. Money, maybe. Some kind of grand present for the family. They had no idea. Finally, Isaiah's mother pushed through the crowd. Diane Coleman looked at her son with tears streaming down her face. "My baby," she whispered, and hugged him tight. Isaiah let her hug him. And for a moment, just a moment, he closed his eyes and let himself feel it. Then he gently pulled back. "It's good to see everyone," Isaiah said, his voice carrying across the room. "Really, it's been a long time, and I have some things I'd like to say. Can everyone gather around for a minute?" The family buzzed with excitement. This was it, the big speech. Maybe he was about to announce how much money he was going to give everybody. They all crowded into the living room. 53 people. Derek leaning against the wall, arms crossed, smug. Tasha with her phone out, ready to record. Uncle Raymond in the best chair. Aunt Beverly clutching her Bible. Cousin Jerome standing near the back, sweating a little. And Diane, Isaiah's mother, sitting right in the front row. Isaiah walked to the front of the room. He set the worn cardboard box down on the table. And he opened it. Isaiah reached into the box and pulled out the first item, a folded letter, yellowed with age. "This," Isaiah said calmly, "is a letter I wrote to this family when I was 28 years old. I was homeless. I was sleeping in my car. I mailed it to my mother, asking for help, asking for a place to stay just for a little while." He unfolded it. "I never got a response." Room went quiet. Isaiah set the letter down and reached back into the box. He pulled out a stack of printed screenshots. "These are text messages," he said. "From over the years, let me read a few." He picked one up. "This one's from Derek. When I asked him for a job washing cars at his dealership, he wrote, and I quote, 'I can't have you around my business making me look bad. You a grown man. Figure it out.'" Every head in the room turned to Derek. Derek's smug smile vanished. "Now hold on, man. That was a long time ago." "I'm not finished," Isaiah said. Not angry, just calm, ice cold and calm. He picked up another screenshot. "This one's from Tasha. And I was starving and reached out to her. She never responded to me. But she did post this in the family group chat that same day. Isaiah is such an embarrassment. I hope nobody at my job finds out he's my brother." Tasha's phone slowly lowered. Her face went pale. Isaiah reached into the box again. This time he pulled out a small tape recorder. "And this," he said, "is my favorite." He pressed play. Aunt Beverly's voice crackled through the room, loud and clear. That boy is too proud to work a real job. Sleeping in a car? Please. He deserves whatever's happening to him. You reap what you sow. Then Uncle Raymond's voice. Some folks just born to fail. Then their laughter, both of them. Laughing, the recording stopped. You could have heard a pin drop in Grandma Ruth's living room. Aunt Beverly's mouth was hanging open. Uncle Raymond had gone completely stiff in his chair. Isaiah looked around the silent room, slowly, meeting each and every pair of eyes. 20 years, Isaiah said quietly. For 20 years, this family made me the punching bag. When my father died, you blamed a 10-year-old child. When I dreamed, you laughed. When I was hungry, you turned away. When I was homeless, you called it a lesson from God. He picked up the letters, the screenshots, the recorder, and held them up. Every single person in this room contributed something to this box, Isaiah said. These were your gifts to me when I had nothing. And now that I have something, you expect me to forget them all. Nobody spoke. Deanne Coleman was weeping silently in the front row. Derek finally pushed off the wall, trying to save himself. Look, Isaiah, we're family, all right? Families go through stuff. We said some things, you said some things. I never said anything, Isaiah cut in, his voice still calm. In 20 years, Derek, I never once insulted a single one of you, not once. You can search that box top to bottom. You won't find one cruel word from me, because that's not who I am. He paused. That's who you are. Derek's mouth opened, then closed. He had nothing. Uncle Raymond tried next, his voice shaky. Now, Isaiah, you got to understand we were just trying to toughen you up. Tough love, that's all it was. And look at you now, maybe you should be thanking us. At that, Isaiah actually smiled. A small, sad smile. You know, Uncle Raymond, he said, you once stood up in this very house, raised your glass, and told everyone that if I ever became successful, pigs would fly. Isaiah looked around the room. Well, he said, look outside. I think I just saw one flying by. A stunned silence. And then, from the back of the room, old Pastor Jenkins let out a low chuckle. He couldn't help it. And that broke something in the tension of the room. Isaiah turned to his mother. He walked over and knelt down in front of Diane, taking her hands in his. Mama, he said softly, you hurt me more than anyone, not because of what you did, but because of what you didn't do. You were supposed to be the one person who stood between me and all of this, and instead you looked away. Diane sobbed. I'm sorry, baby, I'm so sorry. I was weak. I was so weak. I know, Mama, Isaiah said. And he wiped a tear from her cheek. I know. Then Isaiah stood up and addressed the entire room. I want to say something, and I want everyone to hear it clearly, he said. I forgive you, every single one of you. I'm not carrying this pain anymore. I let it go the day I stopped needing your approval. Relief flickered across some of their faces. But Isaiah continued, and his voice hardened. Forgiveness does not restore access. Room went still again. You burned the bridge between us a long time ago, Isaiah said. And here's what you never understood. That burned bridge, it didn't leave me stranded. It taught me how to build new roads. Roads that led me to real family, to people who fed me when I was hungry, who believed in me when I had nothing, who loved me when I couldn't do a single thing for them. He reached out and took Monique's hand. This is my wife, Monique, Isaiah said. None of you have ever met her. She was a stranger who showed me more love in one afternoon than this whole family showed me in 20 years. Isaiah dropped the news that would echo through the Coleman family forever. Know why you're all really here, he said. The jobs, the investments, the loans, the tuition. I've heard from all of you these past few weeks. Hands out. Suddenly I'm family again. He shook his head slowly. So let me be crystal clear. I've started a foundation. It's going to give millions of dollars to young people trying to build something out of nothing, the way I did. Young entrepreneurs with big dreams and no support. No family to catch them when they fall. He looked around the room. $1 of it will go to anyone in this room simply because we share the same last name, Isaiah said. If I ever help any of you, and I mean any of you, it will be because your character earned it, not your blood. He let that sink in. Blood made you my relatives, Isaiah said quietly, but it never made you my family. Family is something you earn, and I'm sorry to say, most of you never even tried. He picked up his cardboard box, tucked it under his arm, and took Monique's hand. Thank you for having me, Isaiah said. I wish every one of you the best, I truly do. And then Isaiah Coleman walked out of Grandma Ruth's house, the same house he'd been laughed out of when he was 16. Except this time he walked out on his own terms, and behind him 53 people sat in stunned, ringing silence, finally understanding that the boy they'd called a failure had become the strongest and wisest man in the entire family. Isaiah and Monique drove home in comfortable quiet. After a while, Monique squeezed his hand. Do you feel? She asked. Isaiah thought about it. He waited for the anger. The bitterness, the need for revenge, but it wasn't there. Instead, he felt light, free. Like he'd finally set down something heavy he'd been carrying his whole life. "Feel free," Isaiah said, and he smiled. "For the first time ever, I feel completely free." That evening, Isaiah and Monique sat on the back porch of their beautiful home, watching the sun go down over Atlanta. Isaiah thought about his father, Big James Coleman, who told a little boy that his mind would take him places. "You were right, Daddy," Isaiah whispered to the sky. "You were right about me." And somewhere, Isaiah liked to believe his father was smiling. As for the cardboard box, Isaiah didn't throw it away, he kept it. Not out of bitterness, but as a reminder of how far he'd come. A reminder that the people who count you out don't get to define you. And a reminder that the sweetest success isn't revenge, it's peace, and there it is. The story of Isaiah Coleman, the invisible son who became a king. Before I let you go, I need you to really hear the lesson in this story. Because it's not just about Isaiah, it's about you. Isaiah didn't become successful to prove his family wrong. He became successful because he finally believed he was right. His worth was never in their hands. It was in his own. And the same is true for you. Some of you watching right now have people in your life who have counted you out, family who laughed at your dreams, so-called loved ones who only show up when you're shining and disappear when you're struggling. Here's the truth Isaiah learned, and I want you to carry it with you. Forgiveness will free your heart, but boundaries will protect your future. You can forgive someone completely and still choose not to hand them the keys to hurt you again. That's not bitterness. That's wisdom. You don't owe anyone access just because you share the same blood. Family is earned. Loyalty is earned. And you are allowed to build your own table with people who actually love you. So build your table. Find your Moniques. Chase your dreams even when nobody claps for you. And never, ever let someone else's opinion become the ceiling on your life. Because remember, they told Isaiah that pigs would fly before he'd ever succeed, and baby, those pigs are soaring. If this story touched you, if Isaiah's journey moved you, do me a favor. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and share this video with someone who needs to hear it today. Someone who's been counted out. Someone who needs to know their comeback is coming. And drop a comment below and tell me, what part of Isaiah's story hit you the hardest? I read every single one. Thank you for watching all the way to the end. You're the real ones. Take care of yourselves, protect your peace, and I'll see you in the next story.